We're going live now. There we go. So give me a second. I'm going to play this quick intro, and then we're going to talk about you.
Lord.
Wait, I'm sorry. We're live now. I'm just looking for my intro. There it is. Here it comes.
Have you ever wondered why you struggle to find success or fulfillment or lasting happiness? It's probably because your default wiring is set to lose. The How to Win at Everything podcast looks at real people who have struggled with the same insecurities, fears, doubts, and expectations, and found a way to succeed. Why? Their brains are rewired for success. We dive into their thought patterns to show you how to rewire your own brain to win at everything.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I am here with How to Win at Everything with my good friend Temeka Cartwright. You guys don't know Temeka yet, but let me just tell you, she is a marvelous, fabulous person. I've known her for about 5 years. We worked together for a long time. She is right now a lead trainer at one of the fastest growing fintechs in the nation. So we're going to have a lot to talk to her about. We're going to see about some of the things she's gone through. And we're going to talk about exactly what ways she's actually used to create wins in her life. So, Temeka, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you, guys. And don't worry, she's very long-winded here. So, so let me start off, Mika, by kind of discussing some of the stuff that you've been doing lately. So I know when I met you, you were taking on, you were just like taking on the training role at this large fintech. How has that progressed for you?
Well, it's progressed wonderfully. I'm currently the lead trainer at the fintech company, and I really get to enjoy firsthand the growth of the company. I support the initiatives. I still get to work firsthand sometimes with the reps, but I definitely support the growth and development of the organization. Still in a very important role, just I've elevated and grown with the organization since you've started.
Yep. So now here's one of the best parts about Temeka, for any of you who are watching who don't know her, when I first met her, she was teaching us about sales, and she's like, "Hey guys, let me just tell you, I want you guys to all be sharks. I want you to be sharks." Now you look at her; she's so happy and jovial. She got so serious real quick. It was like, "And I'm the whale shark, and I'm a big whale, and I'm going to eat." And it's right when I met her that I saw this sort of tenacity, or right when I met you that I saw that sort of tenacity in you and that go get it sort of attitude that you have. But we've talked over the years, and I know that things haven't always been that way for you. So one of the things that we like to do is try to spend a lot of the time on the show kind of discussing some of the things that you've come from in your background, because for as much success as you've had, and a lot of the hurdles and things that you've had to kind of jump and go through, the reality is that you didn't start off in quite such a polished place, right?
No, I didn't.
You started off in public housing, right?
Yes, actually, I did. My mother and I and my sister.
Uh-oh, I think you froze for a second. And let's see if we get you back here. All right. So nope, not yet. So Mika, you may want to try to reestablish your link. I will tell you the portion of the story that I know, guys. Temeka started off in Chicago public housing. And it's a place that I know very well because I also started off in Chicago public housing, some of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago. Oh, and it looks like we got her back.
Okay, I'm back.
All righty. He's out. Look, you know, it was just in time. I was just about to start telling my story about public housing, but you go right on ahead. Tell us how that was, what your experiences were, how that. Um, just tell us about that experience growing up in that situation.
Well, I honestly have positive memories and
Hmm.
experiences from that situation. It's where, as a young Black girl, I experienced a sense of community.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stigmas on public housing and growing up in public housing. However, on my block, I experienced community. There were neighbors and everyone looked out for one another. So it
Hmm.
wasn't what people thought it was to be. And where we lived, it was like half a block from the lake. It's also where I learned to love Lake Michigan because my mother would take us there.
Hmm.
So I don't have the typical negative experience from that environment. Everyone in my community was Black, and I was taught to have pride in my
Hmm.
neighborhood. My educators were Black. So in my mind, it was a community. Not once did I feel as though where I lived was a determining
A
factor in anything
negative.
that I could do or where I
You
would
know,
go with my life.
I'm so glad you bring that up because I got to tell you, mine was different. You know, growing up in public housing, it was all minorities, Black, Mexican, Puerto Rican. It was a lot of poor people, and um, you're so fortunate because in my neighborhood it was sectioned off between the Black gangs, the Mexican gangs, and the Puerto Rican gangs. So in
Mhm.
a lot of ways, it was a much different situation. Either way, I do know growing up in public housing, one of the prerequisites to be there is that you obviously have some economic disadvantages, things like that.
Yeah.
How was that for you growing up?
Honestly, and I've had conversations with my sister about this. I did not realize that my family was poor. We had everything that we needed, and
Yeah,
we traveled with our family and we experienced things. So, not once was I taught to believe that we were poor or in any shape or form because my family afforded experiences for us and they
sure.
taught us to be grateful for the things that were provided. And when I looked around, we had more than most of the kids. So,
Nice,
in my
nice.
neighborhood. So I definitely did not feel as if we were less than in any way.
Now, that's a really interesting thing you bring up because, again, now, my experience obviously seems to be on the 180 from where yours were. And you are so fortunate because um, we were poor, like, but everybody's poor there. So, you know, it's
Hmm.
like it's a relative poor, but we were relatively poor to the other people. So, when some of the other kids were getting stuff, we weren't getting it and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
One of the things that I know that's happened though is that my sister and I we grew up in an idea of not having and that sort of thing. So we both had to like really work on that as we've gotten older. But
Hmm.
it sounds like the way that your family framed these things, you automatically had like a built-in foundation where people were already telling you, hey, it doesn't matter where you are economically. It doesn't matter where you are socially or what neighborhood you're growing up in. Sounds like they were basically building a foundation for you to already feel okay about yourself.
Totally. I will totally say that. My family was completely supportive of just of life and who we were and as how we developed as children. Again, we were never taught to think that we were inferior. We were
Mm,
taught to be proud of our identities, and we were also taught to have faith. And
okay.
in those, when you're taught to have faith at a young age, you learn how to persevere through a lot of things because you learn to rely on something greater than yourself, your
Yeah.
heavenly Father that will provide for you. So if you have the mindset that God will always provide for you, you're never lacking. You
Mm,
know that what you need at the appropriate time will be provided, in addition to your family supporting that and showing that to you. So
yes.
I've kind of always been raised to believe that, and it's just
Okay.
what manifests in my life. Like I will have what I need when I need it. If I don't have it now, it must not be the time, or I need to work a little bit harder to get there. So my
That is
family is
amazing.
crucial.
You know what? A couple of the things that we get to learn when we go through some of the self help techniques and things like that. A lot of times have to do with what kind of foundation you have in your family and what kind of foundation you have faith wise. So you obviously had a couple of those built in right from the beginning, and
Yeah.
it kind of makes the point that. the person you are now, you were able to kind of get past some of these roadblocks and stuff because of that. Now, let me ask you about this because I know that you had mentioned that you grew up a foster child. Can you
Mhm.
tell us like exactly how that worked or what happened? Because you're saying that you were with your mom at one point.
Yes, I was. It
Okay.
was around 2000. My mother, from certain circumstances, had become
Sure.
physically abusive, and my family intervened, and as well did the state. So my sister, brother, and I were thrust into foster care, and it was in those experiences that I really tried to draw on the lessons that my mom had taught us. She was not perfect, no parent is,
Sure. Sure.
and um, I totally forgive her for actions, but it's just like she still tried to instill values in us. And she
Yeah.
taught us to work together, to stick together, to look out for one another. And as the oldest, I
Yeah.
tried to be that shelter point for my sister and brother and to rely on that. But thank God for my grandma, because despite it all, throughout the system, wherever they placed us, whether we were together or not, my grandmother was a staying point in our life. She never left
Mm-hmm.
us. We were never adrift. We went to church every Sabbath, and she made sure that there was something normal in our lives, that we did not lose
Yeah.
any sense of family. So I mean, I give it up to my grandmother, because Frankie Cartwright, just to mention her name, because had it not been for her, who knows?
Yeah.
And who knows? And my grandma, that's that matriarch of the family that values keeping everybody together when everything is falling apart. It's her strength is
Yeah.
what kept us.
That's such an interesting thing because, again, on the show all the time, we're talking about what do people use? What methods do people use? What ways do people find to overcome? And a lot of the stuff that's in us is built in us because of the things that we lacked. And you seem to have had so much family support, even through what you said was abuse with your mom or living in low income housing and that sort of thing. The reality is that there are plenty of people who I've grown up with who are a part of the system now, who are addicted to drugs, who are in and out of repeat offenders, in and out of jail, that sort of thing, because of the fact that they didn't have those pieces instilled. They didn't have that foundation. So it is beautiful that one, that you're even aware, one, that you had those things, but now that also that you're aware and able to share those because most people are going through something and to know, hey, if I can rely on this or provide this for someone else, there's a better chance of them being okay. Um, so, just to talk about another challenge, I know it was a case also that you had a child, you became a single mom. How old were you at that point?
I was 21.
Okay, okay, so you're in
21.
this of age. Um,
I guess
uh,
legally.
well, can you talk about that a little bit? Because having a child isn't easy at any age. Like, there's really no way to be fully prepared for that. And I got a 16-year-old, and I'll tell you right now, I'm probably crying every other day to myself, like, what do I do with this? Because this dude is insane. Like, it was I this person? So I can just imagine if you're a single mom and you're much younger than I am now, you have to be going through it. How was that experience for you?
I think, like, in that experience, oh, to be 21, and go through that experience again, I think I would do things a lot differently. But I
Sure.
was very afraid at that time as a young mother because I didn't really have that solid person that I could lean on in my own mother. And it
Hmm.
kind of forced me and my own insecurities at that time and my doubts that here I am, 21, trying to be an adult, establish
Hmm.
my own sense of adult identity, and now having to rear an adult, another person. I doubted myself a lot, and it's one thing that when I look back on it, that I realized that maybe if I hadn't doubted myself, things would be different now,
Sure.
and
Sure.
because it caused me my insecurities and my doubt caused me to rely on people that I could not really trust. And
Sure.
I had to, and I'm still learning tough lessons from trusting people that you cannot trust. And Yeah, it's in having a 14-year-old who is developing her own sense of identity,
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
just like you, and is as tall
yeah,
as you are in stature is
yeah,
it's a beautiful challenge.
yeah.
Largely because I want to instill values, but I also want her to develop a sense of reasoning and decision making
Yeah.
early in
Yeah.
life. Because I realize that if you have the ability to have confidence in your decisions early in life, you'll be able to propel yourself further. Your doubts and insecurities will not factor as much as you get older. You'll be able to listen to your voice. You'll have a sense of intuition. You'll be able to discern. So consequences and decision and reasoning are things I've been trying to instill in her for a long time.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to see things take root and
Yeah.
see her decision process and character start to manifest and her wanting to have integrity, because these are the terms
Hmm.
that we've been using most of her life, grow. And it's a beautiful process.
Mm. So you were 21 when you had your child. What would you say is the major difference in you now? Like what have you learned from those experiences that have kind of got you on the path you're on now?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned since then is myself.
Okay.
So one thing I realized about becoming a parent at any age, it's no longer about you.
Mm.
So if a person, people don't take the opportunity to grow as individuals before they bring a child into the world, the child is forced to grow with you. And they're
Mm.
forced to go over more hurdles, and your hurdles are harder because it's not just your pursuit to success or your pursuit to
Sure.
happiness and peace. So having lived a little and learned a lot, it's that would be the difference. I would take the time in my life to get to know myself, to establish myself, so I
Yeah.
don't feel as if I'm running with one hand towards my own accomplishments and then trying to keep up with my baby in the other.
Yeah.
So though that's the real challenge in motherhood or being a parent overall.
Mm. You put it all so well, and you make it so easy to understand. Um, First off, let me ask: have you ever considered writing a book about any of this?
Yes, I have. I actually recently bought a book about how to write a book about your life. So that's going to be one of my winter challenges. It's about to get
Nice,
cold outside.
nice. That's right. Look, we're stuck in most of the time because of the COVID, or at least we probably kind of should be. So
Yes.
it's going to be a good thing for you. This will be a good
Yes.
thing.
Thank
Um,
you.
so okay, so I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit because what a lot of what you're saying, uh, and I don't even know how much of this you're even aware of, but every time we talk about a challenge, you have like a positive spin that you're putting on it. You're seeing a silver lining. You're turning these from downs or obstacles to opportunities. What do you think makes that you? Like, why is that what you're doing?
I mean, I think it's again, it's like an autopilot detail of myself because I've just chosen to be positive. I kind of
Right?
learned early in life that if I did not let go of negative things, it would manifest in me. And as we all have the capability, I can have a big attitude, but I don't want to manifest that type of energy
Mm-hmm.
within myself. I don't want to take the negative from an experience because I don't want to be jaded. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
light. And in being light and flowing like water, I'm not going to carry the unnecessary sediments in my current. I'm just going to let that go and continue to flow on with my life. So, if I want to glean something from my experiences and continue to be light past these experiences, I must look at them from a different perspective, because to be drowned in pessimism or think that everyone is against me will weigh me down. And mentally, I want to be light. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want anyone to have control over how I view life, or
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to have power to think that their actions or thoughts impact how I view myself. So I want to be light.
Where did you learn that? How do you know that? Because I'm telling you, this is when we talk to people on this show, you guys have some of the most amazing introspective like viewpoints where you're seeing so much more into your beliefs and your why and everything more so than the common person. Where does that come from? How do you do that? How do you know how to do that?
I can't.
I know I'm getting into the hard ones now.
That's definitely a tough question, because if I thought about it, and what makes me really just strive to be light, I'm thinking about something my grandma would say. The first thing that came to mind is that, and she always says this, she doesn't have a heaven or hell to put me in. And that's when I'm regaling her with my business. So in that, it's like realizing that no one on this earth has power over me except myself. Granted, I'm subject to the laws and I gotta pay taxes and whatever else. However, it's still my life. I think if I draw on anything, it's my faith in a heavenly Father and something greater than myself. Um, that's what I got for that, because I don't. Yeah, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than us. It's as grand as the stars. When you look at the stars and they're shining on you, it took millions of light years for that light to touch your eyes. So that means your life has a purpose. You have a purpose on this earth. And I mean, that's kind of how I am. And I don't really, it's just my way, because I could choose to let every experience and every label define me in a negative way, or I can actively choose to go against it with positive energy. And just like the sun, radiate light and let that be what is my legacy. That's why I'm a shark. Like,
That's right.
I'm a whale shark. I'm a big shark. But whale sharks are non-threatening. They're some of the biggest sharks in the ocean, but they would never hurt you. So
That's what you know. I'm still not getting in the water. Like, I'm just going to make that clear. Anybody who's watching, not getting in the water. Let me ask you then, because I think your point of view is great. Let me ask though, have you had a time where you were in that negative place, where you have been that negative person? And can you describe what the difference is, or what happened or how do you switch that off? Or have you always just been this positive about everything?
I have not always been this positive.
Okay.
And even now, I'm not always this positive. I definitely have stormy days. And I think everybody does. The other day, I was complaining about the crickets. They were too loud. And I realized how ridiculous I was. Like crickets.
Yeah.
But let's see. I think the first lesson I would draw on is just my ability to forgive. And it goes back to my experiences with my mother in foster care. So one day she just didn't show up for court, and we were there, and I'm so angry because I was a teenager going through this experience, and I'm watching it hurt my sister and my brother, and we're going through this, and I'm angry, and she didn't show up. And I'll just say that God told me to forgive her in my heart, and that's not something you want to do when you're a teenager and you're angry. But being taught to listen to the still small voice, and to have your heart open to God and to be open to the values of forgiveness, I forgave her. And I didn't realize how much it set me free. Largely because I wasn't bound by her mistakes. They did not define me. It did not shape how I viewed her as I continued to grow up. Even now, I harbor no resentment. And it's quite interesting that maybe I was 28, she asked for that forgiveness, and I could tell her I had already given it to her. And in that, it felt even better to have let it go, to have made peace.
That is so cool. First off, let me just say you are in a great place, because I talk to people all the time who I know people now in their 40s that are still going through similar issues with their parents, because their parents have not changed, and they have not asked for that forgiveness, and they don't want it. They're continuing down that path of me. So you have kids and offspring and even grandkids who are now looking at their grandparents like, I can't stand you. I don't even know you because blah, blah, blah. So let's kind of go down that path a little bit about forgiveness, because this is another one of those really huge pieces that is really tough for people to do. When you
Mhm.
say that voice told you to forgive, did it give you a reason to forgive, or why were you able to?
I think in reality, if you want God to forgive you of your sins, you need to forgive others.
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm not going to quote any Bible verses, but I was always taught that if you want forgiveness, you have to give forgiveness.
Hmm.
And that's it. Like, and I don't know why the voice came to me, but I thank God that it did,
Hmm.
because my path probably, I'm certainly would be different, because I would
Yeah.
be angry. And who knows what unhealthy choices I would have made as an angry teen.
Hmm.
Like,
Did you find it hard to forgive her though, or was it like an automatic thing, or how did that process work for you?
I mean, it was automatic, because forgiveness sets you free. You are no longer obligated to carry the burden of what someone else did to you when you forgive them. It has
Yeah,
nothing to do with them. It is like the most selfish act that a
it is,
person
right.
can do. You better do it for yourself.
That's right.
'Cause they have their own guilt that they run
Yeah.
from, that they
Yeah.
blind themselves from, because they know what they did. So you better let it go for you, even if
Mm.
they never ask, because it's not about them. It's about
Yeah.
freeing yourself from the burden of being obligated by of the weight. Like, don't obligate yourself to the pain
Mm.
that somebody else put on you. That's theirs. They did it. You continue and be light, and you just have to seek peace.
Hmm.
And that's it. Even if you played a part, or you feel like you played a part in the hurt that they've put on you, you just have to seek peace and
Mm.
be okay with that. Like, and that's the only way. Because if you do not, I can understand how depression. Because I've gone through. We all go through our phases of depression and our
Hmm.
seasons where we doubt ourselves. But forgiving that person, or just dropping it, like, I'm just gonna drop this. I may never say I forgive them, but I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna let it go
That's
and move
good.
forward.
I was curious, how does that process look then? Because you said that it was automatic for you, but now I do know some people who they've said it, but you can tell like if that person doesn't have to be around or even doing anything, and that person's name will come up, and you'll see their eyes like light up, and it's like, oh, I'm angry, and you'll see it there. How do you know that you've completely forgiven somebody?
That is a great question. I think, to your point, it's when you don't have that response. Because there are people, I still get that response. I still have those types of responses to, based on our interactions, and I've forgiven them. But it's still the sting of their actions that caused me to have that response to them, or to the mention of their name. Um, I don't know. That's a good
Does,
question.
does that
I don't
mean
know.
that does that mean that the forgiveness isn't complete then, or what does that mean then?
I think I think in some cases, my mom, her forgiveness was it was just absolute, because she gave me life. And so, like, in
Okay.
that regard, to a parent, they may have disappointed, they may have hurt and rejected, but I'm here. So their purpose for my life is complete, and I can appreciate them from that perspective and
Mm.
journey forward. Now, for other individuals,
Wait, let me just make sure I'm not on this list, right?
no, no, no.
All
It's
right.
a very short list.
Okay.
Um, it sometimes, I can forgive you because I want to let it go. However, there's still, I would expect, and I don't know how crazy this sounds,
Mhm.
atonement for your actions.
Mm.
Because with family, I'm willing to extend that olive branch because I love them, because of the
Mhm.
bond. But if it's a personal issue, then we need to have a conversation. I can forgive you all day, but we still
Mhm.
need to have a conversation, because if you want to rebuild the rapport, or
Okay. Okay.
the levels of respect, then there's some atonement that needs to be had.
So it seems like the kind of cutoff here becomes, if you're going to still be in my world, then we need to solve this or settle this. Because one of the things that I've come up with, at least in my own life, is I forgive everybody. Like, I don't blame my parents for having us in the projects or having us in K Town on the West Side. I don't care. Like, they're great people, and I feel like
Mhm.
as much as they could, I feel like this. If you can give them a straight yes or no, do you want to be the best person in the world toward Kelly with everything you give to him? I feel like if you take out all the crazy stuff that happens in their lives that create who they are, they would automatically say yes. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's what makes you worthy of forgiveness. If you didn't have all the bad stimuli and things that cause you to be whatever kind of crazy stuff you got going on, if you didn't have that, would you be better toward me? And I assume that most people would. I don't think most people are just like bad people who are like, yeah, I just really hate that guy. I want to do harm. So to me, it's like everybody's okay. Um, that being said, there are more than a few people who they're not in my inner circle either,
Mm-hmm.
because I recognize that whatever kind of jacked up things they have going in their brain or in their mind or their soul, I can't be a part of those things. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder for you, are you close with your mom now?
Relatively.
Relatively. Okay. Like somebody who you know has done stuff that even though you forgive them, you know that the stuff probably wasn't right. Are you able to be around those kind of people that you have those situations with on a regular basis, or do you have to keep some space?
I mean, I prefer to protect my energy and keep some space. But
Okay.
if there are instances when I must and I'm kind of required or I need to be around these
Yeah.
people, I really don't have a problem with being around anyone that has wronged me. And
Right.
largely because, I mean, I'm aware of who I am and
Okay.
what they have done to me. It doesn't have power to impact how I am around them. I'm
Right.
going to continue to be light. And maybe that'll radiate into their lives or it'll blind them so much they leave me alone. Either way,
Nice. Okay.
I'm going to be light.
Let me ask you this then. Um, a big part of this seems to be because you mentioned this several times now about about you knowing yourself. So let's just say I'm Temeka Cartwright 25, 30 years ago, obviously only about 30 years old. So
Right.
so about 30 years ago, you're giving me my first lessons in knowing me. What's the first thing that you tell me? What's the most important thing you tell me about you that I need to know about being you now?
The most important thing about being me right now is that I trust myself. And I listen to myself first. And I recognize the value of my own voice.
Okay.
And those are like, that's why I say, I know who I am. I know whose I am. Because when you know who you are, I tell my daughter this all the time. When you know who you are and whose you are, you can govern yourself different. You
Hmm,
are held to a different standard.
hmm.
You don't allow yourself to be subjected to things that demean your character or compromise your integrity because you know who you are and you have a value in your identity and in your self-worth. So
So I'd be a bad interviewer if I didn't ask this. Whose are you?
I'm my own person. I
Oh,
am also a child of God.
okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure I got clear on what that means because I look at this show kind of like an instruction manual for anybody who's struggling with anything. I think
Hmm.
that we can take your life and dissect all the things you say and put into our own lives the different parts that fit. Like I am learning from you right now.
Oh,
And it doesn't matter about how many things that I've known before this. When I get to see your perspective and your take, your approach, your view of life, to me, this is like all new information because it's coming from an all new person who has an all new perspective from what my own is. So I thank you. Thank you. And thank you for whoever ends up watching this after it's broadcast and after it's up on YouTube and Facebook, everybody watch it. So that brings me to another point where it's gonna probably be some forgiveness or things like that. You talked about your mom being around. Your dad seems like he wasn't around. I know from our conversations you didn't really like get to know him and meet up with him until later on, or get to develop that relationship with him until later on. How old were you?
I was about 27 when I actually found my father.
Okay.
Social media is good for something. I actually found, was
Right.
able to locate my dad through Facebook
Hmm.
um, in 2012. And
Right.
it was quite ironic because I had just gotten married that
Mhm.
year in June. And then, like, a few weeks after that, I found my father.
Wow.
Um, it was like, and he is and was everything that he could be to
Hmm.
me as a father. And I'm very grateful for having found him at the time that
Mm-hmm.
I found him in my life, largely because I was 27, a mother, a wife. So I was already a young woman developing her
Yeah.
own sense of self-identity. And to find my father at that time in my life when I'm becoming a wife to someone and trying to grow in that way, my father was crucial in helping me to further find my sense of myself. And it was the relationship that we have had, because he passed away in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
totally, like, it fulfilled any void that I had as a young woman who wanted to know about her father and wanted to know about herself. He was everything I needed him to be, and I'm still ever so grateful that I got to meet him in my life, and he got to meet his granddaughter. So
Yeah.
not only did he complete me, I completed his life cycle with him. I made him an old man
So
when I
you
showed up.
granddad. Mm-hmm. Um, did you have a similar anger for your dad that you had for your mom, or was it some completely different sort of relationship?
It was a completely different relationship. And I didn't blame him for not being around.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know. And he would say he knew that there was somebody out there, and like he would say that to like make it like this romantic thing and just like this very thoughtful, sweet thing. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there, your star in the sky somewhere. But even in the like, I didn't blame him. I was just grateful. I've always been
Sure.
taught to be
Sure.
grateful for what you have, and not every child gets to find a father, and then
Yeah.
not every father accepts their children.
That's right.
And my daddy loved me, and it's so funny that I was like his legit twin. I'm the one that looks the most like him, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just a beautiful thing to have had that bond in my life. And so I'm
Yeah.
still blessed by it. Even in his death, I'm still blessed. I have family, I have grandparents and uncles that are accomplished and beautiful people. So it's family is the ultimate blessing, to have
Mm.
people that you may not have grown up around, but when you get around them, you realize where you get some of your character from, and
Yeah.
why you have this sense of humor, and why your fingers are even crooked. No,
Right.
it's just, again, it's a blessing. And it was like a total sense of fulfillment. So when my marriage started to deteriorate, it didn't matter. Like, okay, my marriage is ending, but I have my father. He's gonna push me through this, and I'm not gonna sit in a sad sack. It's definitely not what I wanted, and never what I thought, but my father is here. I got, so I had the ultimate other half of myself. Like, the
Yeah.
puzzle was complete. And marriage did not complete my puzzle. It was a nice to
Sure.
have. So
That's beautiful. I remember. I remember when your dad died. I remember us talking about it, and when obviously death is something that we can't control.
mhm,
We really can't do anything about that. We can take
mhm.
as good care of ourselves as possible and get hit by a car the next day. So we know that that's a little bit out of our control. How does that change how you live life, how you pursue things, or how you do things at all?
I I can say it's caused me to be way more genuine in my actions.
Okay.
I am, I won't say I'm quick to pick and choose, but I'm very decisive about who I maintain and keep in my life and my circle. And I'm very direct with how I feel about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Oh,
of
is that
course.
point? Oh, yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead. What are you saying?
And like, it's, I mean, the pandemic has made it even more, like, made us all more aware of how important it is to cherish the people you cherish and tell them that you love them.
Sure.
And like with my father and his passing, he had a heart attack. And
Yeah.
I was blessed that he called me 2 days before. I'm bumbling through life and having a
Yeah.
hard day at work. And my dad just calls me out the blue, as dads tend to do. And it was everything, because I was having a tough day. And I was able to talk to my dad and cry to him about work. And he's just like, if you're giving it your best, Tater, fuck it, keep going. And it's like, okay, it's so be it. And I could tell him how much I loved him, and I didn't
Yeah.
know that would be our last conversation.
Yeah.
But I still, even though that was the last one, he knew how much that he was my blessing, that he
Yeah.
was someone that I definitely cherished in my life. And I was grateful to have met him. And because you're just, you want to love on your parents, and you know, especially when you become a parent, I want good karma. I don't want the bad parent karma. I want the, I know they're going to be
Right.
rebellious, but I still want it to even out.
It's all right. So let me ask you this, Tater. I just want you to know that that's going to stick. I want to shift gears a little bit because we only got about 20 minutes left, but I want to make sure we talk about some of this stuff because this is big and is real in the world right now. You are Black, you are a woman, you work in corporate America. There are some 2020 has been a tough year all the way around, but there have been some struggles, man, and there has been a lot of conversation about what that means to be a double minority, and all of that. How has it been for you? How has your journey been coming from wherever you started to being where you are right now, where you're a boss? How's your journey been?
I would say that life for me has not been a crystal stair, and I'm still climbing and turning landings and turning corners. And like that's a quote from a poem that I love by Langston Hughes. So it's not without its challenges, and challenges definitely help to shape your character. But in my career, I've been fortunate to have leaders that empower me. Even now, I have leaders that empower me. And again, the way that I was raised, I'm not inferior in any kind of way. So I don't succumb to those things. I'm almost oblivious to them because I know who I am. And yes, this climate exists, but I've thrived in other personal struggles. So I will continue to thrive and be resilient throughout whatever I'm facing, whether it's an economic thing, a social thing. I don't feel limited because of who I am. Women, in my opinion, we are creators of life. So I always have the ability to manifest and to grow in life and to be fruitful if I focus on positive energy. And my melanin is activated by the sun. And so I am already blessed with a certain level of power. And we all are if we tap into it. I'm just okay with vocalizing that I'll tap into my power and that I feel that women are creators of life. So we're more powerful than we're led to believe. And that's why you got to know who you are and whose you are. Because if you don't, you'll think that you're a double minority, or you'll think that because you're a woman, you're inferior. But you'll realize that as women, we go through some pains that a man could never understand and or experience. And in that, we're taught to have a different level of strength that brings forth life. So what double minority?
Understood. And I will say this: God knew what He was doing, because if you left childbearing up to men, I'll tell you right now, I don't mind. The species can just end. Like, that's okay. I'm not. That's okay. I saw my first childbearing on like PBS, and I was like, nah. I was like 13. It's like, nah, we're good. Like, mankind doesn't even need to keep going if you ask me to do. So thank you, woman. Thank you.
You're welcome. All women.
So look, I know that you have a resiliency to you. What's unfortunate is that I don't think that most people are seeing it that way. I don't think that most Black people are seeing it that way. So you know some of the struggles that Black people are going through. I know that you've been in, you've heard some of these roundtables and some of these allyship meetings and that sort of thing. And at this point, if you get to make the rules, if you get to tell people how to be, what do you tell your daughter, upcoming Black woman, how to survive in this climate or how to thrive in this climate, what does she need to do?
That is a great question. And it's a tough one to answer, largely because the reality is, in spite of everything that I think, I'm still subject to whatever life throws at me, life
Yeah.
being an individual or whatever. That's a tough question, Kelly. You're stumping me over here. So,
That was the idea.
one thing that I try to teach my daughter is to remain true to her integrity,
Okay.
like, and to have a sense of pride in herself. Like, because life is going to throw itself at you, and you're going to get knocked down quite a few times. And before you
Yeah.
learn how to stand strong in who you are and be okay with it, with what comes behind that, it's heartbreaking to see the media and to see so many people being killed by the police. And it's tough because you just want to be angry. But
Mm-hmm.
again, in striving to be light, because anger is a fire that's all consuming, and I don't want to operate from that because I don't want it to impact the relationships I have with people or how
Sure.
I view the world.
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
it's tough because you look at society and everyone is tearing up and burning down everything, and three people are guilty of this, and I understand it all. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people that don't have, and there are a lot of people that have been disenfranchised for so long
Yep.
that they don't even know that there are other options available to them, or they don't even know how to tap into those resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, for my daughter, it's just trying to provide her with a life and experiences that give her the ability to have a positive narrative, and
Mm-hmm.
then draw on those experiences to become resilient in her life, kind of like I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with everything going on around me, it's really hard not to get sucked up into it, not to buy into the
Mm-hmm.
propaganda of being negative, or
Yeah.
not to drown in the hopelessness of racism that is woven into this country's culture, like, and still be light and maintain some type of float, and
Mm-hmm.
mental positivity. It's tough, and it's like you don't want to blind yourself and put yourself in a bubble. So I'm aware of it, but I'm also aware of how much I allow to be into my life,
Mm-hmm.
because I still need to maintain my inner peace.
Does that allow for you to so so how much does that allow for you to operate on changing things? Like so for you, where are you able to make changes, or how does that allow you to affect change in your community, in your own life, in the world? Because I know a part of it is you have to have a step away from it so that you're not engulfed in anger, because that's what racial inequality and violence and stuff makes you want to feel. How do you how are you, if you are able to have some sort of impact against all of that? Like, what do you do? How do you do that?
Well, one thing that I try to do, as a member of an organization, we go out and give to the community. So I may not be able to help the entire world, but I can help the people within my community. I can help those that are less fortunate, and I do that. In addition to working with my sisters of
Mhm.
JIA chapter number 413 of the Order of the Eastern Star, we go out and we help others. So I try to make a firsthand impact wherever I can. Um, and I also believe in supporting Black businesses and economic growth within our community. So I'm willing to promote and support that as well.
Okay. So let me make sure I got this right, because it sounds like you're into the idea of making change, but you're looking at how to do it from a positive way. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying more than that? Just want to
I
make
mean,
sure I don't
totally, I'm totally
pigeonhole
looking at it totally from a positive way, because I mean, what I want to, if I'm making an impact, I want it to be something lasting and a legacy that I can be proud of, that my daughter can be proud of. So,
you. Hmm.
what better way than to be positive? There are a lot of people that do not have. Why can't
Sure.
I go and give if I have excess, or if I have the ability to acquire for someone else and help them? Why
Hmm.
wouldn't I do that? So, it may never change in policy, but I can definitely help someone. I'm even willing, honestly, to take off work and drive people to the polls if they need to in November, because that will directly help people get access and shift, hopefully shift where we are right now. So it's realizing that in my oneness and even in my collective setting, I still have a power to impact. And I may never have a statue or make a speech in front of a ton of people, kind of like what we're doing now. But I can still go and give to those that are homeless. I can make some sandwiches with my sisters and we can go and pass them out. We can gather some of our old clothes and go to a women's shelter. And we can go and cook for the women in those shelters. I can still show people and that there's good in this world. Because it's a lot of bad out there. There are a lot of negative images. There's so many images that help to further enforce stereotypes and make people feel less than. So I just striving to be light. I still want to give back and make an impact where I can.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I want to close out by getting some in-depth information about your viewpoint. I know we've been talking about your viewpoint a lot, but I want to take you to the end. And as a matter of fact, I believe this is a question I asked you like 4 years ago, and I don't think you ever answered this. So I want to get you on camera now on the World Wide Web, so you can't skip out of this. Say it's your last day on Earth. You're on your deathbed, and it's a case that you're thinking back on your life. How do you know if you won? How do you know if you've had a good life? What are you proud of? Can you describe it to me?
Yes, I can try.
Okay.
I think I would just be proud of the legacy of just living a life positive, giving to those that needed it, and being a friend to anyone that I consider to be a friend, and leaving a legacy of love and just good works. Now I'm not a saint because I'm not. However, I'd
Right.
rather be known for being positive and being a person that helps other people to succeed and propel in life, or even if it's just a good conversation and a listening ear, just knowing that I've made a positive impact somewhere in the world to maybe 3 people, if that's it.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, if it's a case that you didn't do that, would you feel like what you've accomplished so far has been a good enough picture of what Temeka can do?
And Kelly, you forced me to look back and having these conversations with you. I was very anxious about that. And being honest, I didn't think that I was that successful. It took for me to really look at what I've experienced and
Mm-hmm.
how I still have this ability to be light, to be positive, to be
Mm-hmm.
loving, to understand the measure of success. Because I'm working on my credit and trying to figure out where to invest my money like everybody else.
That's right.
So I would say it's a good starting point. So yes, if this was my last day, and Lord, not today or tomorrow, next week, but I would be proud of what I've accomplished in my
Yeah.
personal life. I would be proud of where I am in my mental state, because that's one thing that you can't buy.
That's right.
And sometimes it's hard to fix. I would be, and I am ever so proud of my grandmother, and I'm starting to realize how I'm becoming like her, because she's taught me so much, and how
Yeah.
much I draw on the lessons and the things that she's been saying to me forever, to grow and still, and I don't know. Yes, I would be very happy, proud of my uncle, because he's here to support me. My aunt, having that family and my friends, my organization that I'm very actively involved in. Yeah, I'll be all right. I think somebody has something nice to say for maybe 5 minutes over the 2-minute limit. Like, I think I
Mm-hmm.
can make it. Yeah, I think somebody will get up there and say something.
I am so glad. I know we talked about this, and I know you're like, well, not quite what I would call successful, but I would sternly disagree. I know a lot of people who've gone through a lot of stuff, and for whatever reason, my world is built around a bunch of people who are broken, and I know so many of them who are not anywhere near mentally the state where you are right now. So I congratulate you, sister. You are doing very,
Yeah.
very well. You're doing
God
very,
is
very
good.
well.
God is good. God is good. And when people congratulate me on certain things, where I'm just like, I
Yeah.
always I always say God is good, and He'll use you if you let Him, but you got to get out the way. And like,
True.
and we're always in our own way. We let our doubts trip us up and we let this stop us. But if we realize that God has a divine plan for us and He wants us to be happy, we'll also know that the things we're experiencing are stepping stones toward that greatness. So
That's right.
thank
Right.
you.
Well, I'm glad we got you there. So, look, we're gonna close out. I want to get a final Temeka Cartwright thought. Give us to a TC. What's the last thing that you want to leave us with? Don't forget, this is on the World Wide Web, so it can be accessed by pretty much anybody forever.
Okay, no pressure,
No
right?
pressure. No pressure.
I guess if I had to leave you with anything, it would just be to seek peace in your life and peace in the storms that you face, and realize that there is a divine purpose for each of our lives. And the moment that we start to listen to the universe and trust our hearts, we'll be able to propel ourselves further than we could ever imagine. So that's all I got.
All right. Temeka Cartwright, thank you so much for spending your hour with us today on How to Win at Everything.
No
Guys,
problem.
if you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions about any of our guests, or if it's a case where you want to speak to me directly, you can reach me at www.bethinklive.com. Also, Temeka, you hold on for just a second. I'm going to play us out with my quick and cheesy outro, and you stay on. I'll talk to you backstage.
No problem. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Ta-da!